6 things most pastors and congregations don't know about Jesus. Number 1, he was against the institutional government-sponsored church. After all, that's who killed him. When these jealous, status quo-driven religious and political leaders had the choice between whether Barabbas or Jesus would live, they chose the criminal, Barabbas, and they demanded Christ be crucified. The institutional church hated Jesus because he wouldn't play their games. 99% of all churches today are institutional 501c3 corporations of the government, and they hate anyone who speaks against them. If Jesus walked into one of these churches, they would throw him out for challenging their compromise with Caesar. Number 2, Jesus didn't go to church twice on Sunday and once on Wednesday. And he didn't spend his time mowing the synagogue lawn or polishing the paving stones in front of the temple. Nor did he kowtow to the important religious leaders or go to their silly conferences. Jesus was too busy spending his time with the people of Israel. He was out ministering throughout the land. He didn't have a whole lot of time to play church. It is highly unlikely that he would even set foot in the average North American church today. And if he did, and expressed his displeasure with the ritualism, entertainment, and religiosity, they would promptly show him the door. Number 3, Jesus did not tithe. All agree that Jesus knew the law better than anyone. Carpenters and others like him didn't tithe. Tithing was only for those who earned their living off the actual land of Israel. It was for those who farmed and raised animals. The purpose of the tithe was to support the Levitical priesthood, maintain the temple, and provide social assistance for those in need. The tithe was never money. When the temple in Jerusalem and the priesthood were disannulled, the tithe ended. Most pastors today preach that tithing is still commanded for today's Christians. Yet there is not one single verse in the New Testament that supports tithing. All tithing requirements are spelled out in the Old Testament, and they were for the Jews, and only in the land of Israel. And the total amount of tithes amounted to around 23% or more. Tithe-preaching pastors in today's churches disdain people who don't tithe. I guess that would also include Jesus. Number 4, Jesus didn't teach a rapture. He taught the resurrection at the last day, and he makes that crystal clear in the 6th chapter of John. Jesus taught that his true followers would face tribulation, and they would be hated. He warned them that following him would be dangerous, and persecution could be expected. He said that the very synagogue itself, the equivalent of today's institutional churches, would persecute his true followers. He told his disciples to expect to be kicked out and shunned by the institutional church. I'll tell you what would happen to Jesus if he walked into the average North American church today and he taught the resurrection at the last day. They would call him ignorant and refuse him membership in their church organization. Number 5, Jesus didn't believe in multiple ways to be saved. He flatly rejected dispensationalism. He said that salvation is only through him and not by any other way. He said, "No man cometh to the Father but by me." The average dispensational church would ask Jesus to sit down in the pew and be quiet, so that he could learn something from the learned men who know how to divide the truth. And if he questioned them, They would humiliate him and kick him out for being a dissembler and a source of disunity. Number 6. Jesus had no credentials. He was not part of the intelligentsia. He did not get his doctrine from them, and he was not part of their alumni. For that they hated him, and his disciples too, many of which the scribes and Pharisees called unlearned and ignorant, yet they marveled at the depth of their theological knowledge. If Jesus asked to preach in the average North American institutional church today, the first thing they would ask for is his credentials. Is it Dr. Jesus, they would ask. When he replied, no, it's just Jesus, they would dismiss him and tell him to come back when he had some letters after his name, or a piece of paper giving him the institutional authority to preach. In closing, the institutional churches of America threw Jesus out of their churches a long time ago. They are caught up in feel-good, ear-tickling messages and politically correct and financially beneficial doctrines. They care little for truth, but are more concerned about being widely respected and protecting their organizations and streams of revenue. They may name the name of Jesus, but the substance that gives the name Jesus true meaning has been gutted and tossed in the trash. The Jesus of today's churches has become little more than a brand name, an association with something universally recognized, but void of deeper meaning. The name Jesus, for most, is something you tack on the end of a prayer to legitimize it and ensure that God the Father will answer. It's part of an empty formula, representative of the spiritual bankruptcy of America's churches, caught up in entertainment, asset acquisition, and maintaining a cultural Christian status quo. You can be sure that, in most cases, Jesus has left the building in disgust and will not return until the money grabbers and praying hypocrites are chased out. Jesus kicked them out of the temple once before, and he'll do it again. Take care, folks. And if you hate this message, it's probably because you are an institutional Christian, traveling down the broad road with the many.